Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. So last week we started our first rabbit hole study, and we talked about humans briefly. And we talked about angels. We started with angels. If you weren't here, I did send out a link in the email to the recording of it. I do want to tell you guys, I made a note on the video, but if you go out there and it's just a black screen and no audio, it's because I kind of messed up the recording. Skip forward 17 minutes and it'll start. So I tried to take out all the crowd noise and all that stuff, and I just deleted the content but left the space, so it's just like 17 minutes of blank space there. So I went back later and thought I'd fix it, and then I went, we'll worry about it later. So we left off last week talking about the types of angels, and we talked about three categories of heavenly beings: the cherubim, seraphim, and other living creatures that we read about in Scripture. So we'll start this week. We'll talk about the cherubim first. And they're typically described as having a complex and symbolic appearance. When we talked last week about angels, and what people think about them a lot of times is it's humans who have gone to heaven and turned into angels, right? That's what we picture them as through society, at least. All your old cartoons, all of your movies, when we talk about it, it's a person with wings, right? And we don't really picture it as some other kind of a being. And when we read the passage that we're going to read here, we'll see that they really don't necessarily look like we think they look. Right. So what we're going to do, one of the best depictions is in Ezekiel chapter 1. And there's also a little bit in Ezekiel 41. But what I'd like to do is have someone read either from their local copy or from the screen the entirety of Ezekiel chapter 1, because there's a lot here. So if somebody wants to start, and when the screen changes, somebody else can take over, that's fine too. But let's read Ezekiel chapter 1.
In the 30th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I was among the exiles by the Chebar Canal, the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. On the 5th day of the month, it was the 5th year of the exile of King Jehoiakim. The word of the Lord came to Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans by the Chebar Canal, and the hand of the Lord was upon him there. As I looked, behold, a stormy wind came out of the north, and a great cloud with brightness around it, and fire flashing forth continually. And in the midst of the fire, as it were gleaming metal, and from the midst of it came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had human likeness, but each had 4 faces, and each of them had 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like burnished bronze. Under their wings, on their 4 sides, they had human hands. And the 4 had their faces and their wings thus. Their wings touched one another. Each one of them went straight forward, without turning as they went. As for the likeness of their faces, each had a human face. The 4 had the face of a lion on the right side. The 4 had the face of an ox on the left side. And the 4 had the face of an eagle. Such were their faces, and their wings were spread out above. Each creature had 2 wings, each of which touched the wing of another, while 2 covered their bodies, and each went straight forward. Wherever the Spirit would go, they went, without turning as they went. As for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, like the appearance of torches moving to and fro among the living creatures. And the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning, and the living creatures darted to and fro like the appearance of a flash of lightning.
Did that-
Somebody, I.
Oh,
mid-
Okay, 15.
I can't.
Somebody want to pick up at 15?
Now, as I looked at the living creatures, behold, a wheel was on the earth beside each living creature with its four faces. The appearance of the wheels and their workings was like the color of beryl, and all four had the same likeness. The appearance of their workings was, as it were, a wheel in the middle of the wheel. When they moved, they went toward any one of four directions. They did not turn aside when they went. As for the rims, they were so high, they were awesome, and their rims were full of eyes all around the four of them. When the living creatures went, the wheels went beside them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Wherever the Spirit wanted to go, they went, because there the Spirit went, and the wheels were lifted together with them. For the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. When those went, these went. When those stood, these stood. And when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up together with them. For the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. The likeness of the firmament above the heads of the living creatures was like the color of awesome crystal stretched out over their heads. And under the firmament, their wings spread out straight, one toward each other. Each one had two which covered one side, and each one had two which covered the other side of the body. When they went, I heard the noise of their wings, like the noise of many waters, like the voice of the Almighty, a tumult like the noise of an army. And when they stood still, they let their wings down. A voice came from above the firmament that was over their heads. Whenever they stood, they let down their wings. And above the firmament over their heads was the likeness of a throne, in appearance like a sapphire stone. On the likeness of the throne, it was a likeness with the appearance of a man high above it. Also, when the appearance of his waist and upward I saw, as it were the color of amber, with the appearance of fire all around within it, and the appearance of his waist and downward I saw, as it were, the appearance of fire with brightness all around, like the appearance of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day. So was the appearance of the brightness all around it. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. So when I saw it, I fell on my face. I heard a voice of one speaking.
Wow. That really gives you something to imagine, right? It really is hard for us to look at this. And one word that you'll see throughout this passage, 4 letters, like, because he's describing something that he's never seen. And he's like, it's like a man, but it's like it's on fire. It's like it's metal. It's like, because there's nothing that it can really be compared to, right? So Ezekiel is trying to describe this in terms of something that's not been seen. And when you start talking about this, it's difficult to do. Now you can go out and you can Google cherubim. You can even go to Chat GPT, put Ezekiel 41 in there, and it'll draw you something of what it's supposed to look like. It's not what we've always looked like an angel. I mean, if we look at it, what we've kind of thought about them, that's not what you think of. And even then, when you see it, it's very figurative language. So he's putting figurative things in there, like the wheels. You know, he's really talking about it being able to move in any direction at any time. But it's like, how would something do that? Right? It's like it's got wheels going in every direction. So there's a lot of things in there that's figurative, and it's really difficult for us to try to imagine exactly what it would look like. Cherubim are mentioned several times throughout Scripture. They guarded the entrance of the Garden of Eden. That's in Genesis 3:24. God is enthroned above them, Ezekiel 10:1-22. God rides on them in Psalm 18:10. And two golden figures of cherubim sit above the Ark of the Covenant. If you remember the Ark of the Covenant, where God promised to dwell among his people. So on the mercy seat, that's where they sit. And that's in Exodus 25:22 and verses 18-21. Second are the seraphim. And the seraphim is another type of angel only mentioned once in the Bible. They appear in Isaiah 6, verses 2-7, where they continually worship the Lord and say, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." That's Isaiah 6:3. Third are the living creatures that we read of. Ezekiel and in the book of Ezekiel and in Revelation both speak of other kinds of heavenly beings known as living creatures that are around God's throne. That's Ezekiel 1:5-14, Revelation 4:6-8. They appeared like a lion, an ox, a man, and an eagle, representing various parts of God's creation: the wild beasts, the domesticated animals, human beings, and birds. They too worship God continually. Day and night, they never cease to sing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come." That's in Revelation 4:8. Angels in the Bible appear to have a rank and order, a hierarchy, similar to military rank and order, if you really kind of look at it. The angel hierarchy is supported by Jude 9, when the angel Michael is called an archangel or archangel, whichever way you want to say it, a title that indicates rule or authority over the other angels. He's also called one of the chief princes. This is in Daniel 10:13, and appears to lead God's angelic army in Revelation 12, verses 7-8, where it says, "Now war arose in heaven, Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought, but they were defeated." Paul also tells us that the Lord will return from heaven with the archangel's call. 1 Thessalonians 4:16. Scripture doesn't tell us if Michael, if this is Michael or if there's other archangels as well. Some people have said it is Michael, but it doesn't really tell us that definitively. Most scholars agree that the cherubim are regarded highly in the hierarchy of angels because of their role in guarding things that are both holy in heaven and on earth. So that's kind of where people think that that some of that hierarchy comes from.
Gabriel may be some of the archangel.
Yeah, could be. And then we go when we talk about, and we briefly mentioned this last week, about guardian angels, right? Are there guardian angels? And one of the things that we see, especially with people in the world, is we feel like when our loved ones die, they go to heaven, they become an angel, and they come and protect us and watch over us. That's what we think of when we say guardian angel a lot of times, right? That they're sitting right there with you. One thing is for certain, that the Bible clearly tells us that God sends angels to protect people. So, are there guardian angels? Yeah, I think so. Are they what we have always thought of them as, or what they've been described to us as? No, probably not. So let's look at it just a bit. He will give his angels charge of you to guard you in all your ways. On their hands they will bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. That's Psalm 91, starting in verse 11 and going through 1 and 2. Sorry. Mine says something different than the screen. But are these the same as what we think of when we discuss guardian angels? In Matthew 18:10, Jesus seems to support the idea of some sort of a guardian angel, at least for children, if you look at what the passage says. But he may only mean that angels are assigned to protect little children in general, not necessarily one per child. It's not real clear as to what he means there, but it kind of indicates that angels do protect. In Acts 12:15, the disciples said that Peter's angel must be knocking at the door. And this doesn't necessarily mean that they believe in individual guardian angels. It's possible they believed an angel was simply guarding Peter at the time. And if we look at some of the passages, there's some supernatural protection going on. There's some passages that we read. The one that really comes to mind is Lot, right? Where we know that was angels that were sent to protect him. So I think God has angels that he sends to protect in certain situations. Some maybe not, but I think that the concept of an angel guarding is a real concept. And while arguments can be made, there's no definitive biblical proof that guardian angels exist, especially in the way that we think of them, right? There's nothing that specifically says it. One thing for certain is we know that our loved ones or other people don't die and then become our guardian angels. We do know that. Then we go into the other question that people may ask. Do angels have names? Michael, that's one that we know of, right? We read that specific name. We talked about him just a bit earlier. The other is Gabriel that you mentioned. Michael's mentioned in Jude 9. Revelation 12:7-8, and Daniel 10:13 and 21. Gabriel is mentioned in Daniel 8:16 and 9:21 as a messenger who comes from God to speak to Daniel. He's also mentioned as God's messenger in Luke 1, who was sent to the Virgin Mary in Luke 1:26 and 27. Angels are God's messengers to humans. God communicated with his prophets and with other humans via angels. Earlier, we mentioned that angels are not deity. They're not holy like God. They do rank above humans in certain ways, right? They do have powers that we don't have, but they're not deity. They're not to be worshiped. One key trait of God is that he is omnipresent. He's everywhere at all times. Angels are not. They frequently appear as messengers traveling from one place to another. You don't see any mention of them being all places at all times. They show up in specific areas and situations. The fact that angels are not omnipresent is made explicit when an angel comes to Daniel and says in Daniel 10:12-14, "Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before God, your words have been heard, and I have come because of your words. The prince of the king of Persia withstood me 21 days, but Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me. For I was left there with the kings of Persia and came to make you understand what is to happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision is for days yet to come." So he came to him. He wasn't with him all the time. He came to him. If angels were indeed omnipresent, Michael would not have had to come for help to him. He would have already been there, right? So he's not omnipresent. Another question that arises is, how many angels are there? What's the quick answer? A lot. We don't know the exact number, but it's a lot, right? Short answer, we don't know. A multitude. That's, yeah. And it doesn't tell us a number, but what we read, it seems there are a lot. There's a few passages in the Bible that give us some clues, but still don't give us an exact number. On Mount Sinai, God came from the 10,000s of holy ones. Was it only 10,000? No, I don't think so. With flaming fire on his right hand. That's in Deuteronomy 33:2. We also learn that the chariots of God are tens of thousands of thousands. That's in Psalm 68:17. When we come to worship, we come into the presence of innumerable angels. You know, and when we look at innumerable, what does that mean? You can't count them, right? It's more than you can count. And when you start counting, you know, everything that has a finite number could be counted. But I forget how much it is if you count to a billion, how long it takes. Years, you know, years and years and years. If you counted by one all the way to a billion, it would take almost an entire lifetime. So it's a lot. You're right. There's a lot. John says, I heard around the throne of the living creatures and the elders the voice of many angels, numbering myriads of myriads and thousands of thousands. So it's a lot. Nothing tells us definitively. If anybody says there's a definitive number, they don't know it. They really don't. They're making something up. Every biblical reference that we see suggests that the number of angels is just beyond. It's like the stars in the sky. It's beyond counting. And it's something that, quite honestly, why would you waste your time doing it, right? There's other things for us to focus on. Why would we worry about how many there are? Just keep in mind there's a bunch. That's all we need. There's a bunch. Angels are very close to God and are a model for us in worship. They worship God continuously. They're used as messengers to communicate God's intended message, and they're used to carry out some of God's plans. There are many examples of them delivering God's message to humans through the Old Testament and the New Testament. You guys have seen some in our other studies. As you read about it, you'll see those. One of the things that we see when they come to deliver a message, people are awestruck when they see them, and oftentimes will bow down before them, right? And what does the angel say? Get up, get up. So there's plenty of messages out there. They also carry out God's judgments. I mentioned Lot earlier. If you remember Sodom and Gomorrah, what did the angels do after they took Lot and his family out? They destroyed the cities, right? So there are things like that. There's other examples throughout Scripture where they came in and they would smite the leaders. The Assyrian army is one. They would help deliver plagues, pouring out the bowls of God's wrath on the earth. If you read in Revelation, they are doing the work to carry out God's judgment. Angels are very strong and powerful. God's given them special powers that allow them to carry out his commands. This is one thing that we see that we know humans are not capable of, right? We can't carry out those plans. Now, he has plans for humans, but not the same kind of plans that he has for angels. Even with all the attributes that God's given angels, and given the fact that they are stronger and more powerful than we are not to worship angels. In Revelation 19:10, John's warned directly that he should not worship an angel. You must not do that, is what the angel said. I am a fellow servant with you and your brethren who hold the testimony. Worship God. That's what the angel told him. There is much, much more that we could discuss with the angels, but we'll leave some of that for others to do. I told you guys we're going to hit some of the high points. This is something that you can read books and books and books and books and find hypotheticals and what ifs and all sorts of things about angels. But I tried to go just kind of hit the real high points in particular. But that'll bring us to Satan and the demons. And I think we're going to save that till next week. I think that's what we're going to do. And we'll talk about them and the similarities and where they came from and that sort of thing. And again, they're not necessarily like we think of them, right? You remember the old Bugs Bunny cartoons where he's got a good angel on one shoulder and the little red devil on the other shoulder, right? It's different than that, but we know what they're getting at there, but it's a little different. So we'll talk about Satan and the demons starting next week. Comments or questions?
One thing that struck out at me is when you said that their angels are very close to God, and they are, and I never really just thought about that. But can you imagine, even though he knew it would happen, how it broke the Lord's heart when Lucifer rebelled against him?
Yeah.
And he was the most beautiful angel that God created.
And we'll talk about that specifically on how, when we start talking about it, and if anybody's ridden from I-65 up this way, you see the sign out there that says, go to church or the devil will get you. And you got this red serpent with a long pointy tail and all that stuff. And that's not what he's going to look like. Because if you saw that, quite honestly, what would you do? You'd run. You'd say, hey, that's the devil. Let me get out of here. That's not what he's going to look like. He's actually going to be something that we're attracted to in a way that, yeah. He's going to be somebody that we're really enamored with. Yes, ma'am.
But years ago, when I was pregnant with my third child, I climbed up in the attic, which I should have been. Anybody ever seen a picture of Frank? I'm cute. Anyway, I went up and I had the rectangular opening and I pulled the stair down. And when I got to the top, I fell and I fell backwards. Technically, I should have hit my head on that opening and probably broke my neck. Before I knew it, I was turned around, sat down on the top of the stairs, and I could feel that holding me. Right there's, I'm just shaped like a leaf, and it sat there holding me until I calmed down.
What was that?
Yeah, I knew what it was. I mean, there's no way I could have. Number one, as big as I wouldn't turn around. But it was not possible for me to do that.
I was when I was a teenager, I worked at a grocery store, and one of my jobs was to stock the shelves, right, the meat counter. And I was in high school. I was working 40 plus hours a week. Wasn't supposed to be, but I was. I wasn't getting a whole lot of sleep. And while I'm kneeled down there putting bologna in the meat counter, right, I touched the end of one of the fluorescent lights that are under it, and I kind of dozed off while I stuck my hand in there, and it just like this right here. And I woke up and I turned around and looked, and I thought somebody had got me, and I always swore the devil got me that day. It scared me half to death. I thought somebody literally had come and shook me and tried to, I thought I was caught. Oh Lord, they're gonna fire me. But it's just a light bulb. But yeah, I've heard stories like that before where, there's no explanation for how you could have survived. Car accidents, we see people, and it's easy to go, we do that sometimes. We'll hear stories go, but explain it, right? We need to explain it sometimes, and it's hard to. Yes, ma'am.
I'll do this quickly. You'll never convince me that not. I used to work at the Galleria and I would work really late nights. And I would always try to go out before or with people. Anyway, one night I was there at 11:30. I go out the door. And I always try to watch. But anyway, I got halfway over up there by Bonmore, halfway between the door that was locked and nobody there, and nobody looked up at me at 11 o'clock at night. And there was a man that came up from the right side and started following me. Immediately I'm in trouble. And I thought, I didn't do anything. Anyway, long story short, all I could do was pray. I'm telling you, there was nobody in the parking lot but my car. All of a sudden, a car with these two women that were as bright as they could be appeared. I'm telling you, appeared
Mm-hmm.
and sat there. And as I got closer, looked at me and said, when I said, "You're going to be okay." I go to my car. The guy turns around and walks the other way. When I got in my car and turned around, the car was gone.
Mm.
And
Wow.
the two women, you'll never, ever.
Yeah.
That was nothing other than God sending.
Yeah.
Angels of
And you know, I've heard lots of encounters, and you know, there's a lot that I'm sure you guys have probably heard or seen some of those as well. It's hard to explain, right? It is. It's hard to explain. And yeah.
I had a similar thing one day when we're not gonna go to school.
Mm-hmm.
And it was before them round, before them. And, you know, I had 15 minutes extra that day for whatever reason. I did my same normal thing. I thought, I'm gonna watch this, and I don't know. It's my prayer time slack.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and just prayed and asked God to watch over me and
Mhm.
my family through the train and blah, blah, blah. I started down and double up now, and they had just painted it that year. And just like a week or two before, and they were having a lot of wrecks because they did not angle it right and everything. Anyway, I was driving, and all of a sudden, the truck in front of me is just fishtailing everywhere. Well, now I'm fishtailing with him, and I can't do right which way to do that still. So I said, just help me. I spun when I crossed 280 twice. I'm coming down the hill. I ended up going up the hill in the left-hand lane.
Did you just go home?
Because it did not have top of the rim on my tire. But a cop saw me and the lady stopped that was behind me. She said, and he looked, and that was when Eagle Point did not have
Mhm.
guardrails or anything. He said, I don't know what to say to you, lady. He said, "You did 7 donuts. Crossed over twice." He said, "I hope you believe in God, because if you don't, here's your sign." I said, "No, he didn't talk this morning."
We talked this morning. Yeah.
And when I let go, that's doing my LG.
Yeah.
So, you know, you ain't gonna convince me otherwise.
I hear you. And, you know, that's, I certainly, yeah.
Because sometimes similar things happen to them, if they don't know that God is who God says he is.
Mhm.
Some of these are the things that happen.
You'll hear a lot of times, especially in the countries outside of the US, and especially in places like Africa and some of those places where they don't have the cultural influence that we have here. You'll find a lot of people talking about angels and demons, and talking about the miracles that they see that we overlook and don't think twice about, or go in, nobody'd believe me, so, you know, I'll just keep that to myself, kind of thing. So you see a lot of that. All right, anybody else?
A quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know we're ready to go, but I don't know that I'll be the next.
That's fine.
When you were talking about the passage about mentioning angels being close to the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that they are tempted still, or once Lucifer fell and took the angels with him, that it was separated?
I think that they still have their free will. I think they were given free will, and that's why Lucifer and part of them left. But I think that the ones that stayed choose to stay. And I think that they would still have that in them, where if they chose to say, I want to be like God, they could. But I think that ship has sailed. So I don't think it's, you know, a part of his providential plan for them to do that more. But I think they still have that free will and could. But I guess that's probably another rabbit hole we could try to. But I think then you get into just what do I think versus what does somebody else think on that one? Because I don't know that it really tells us, but that's without answering you. Great. That's kind of how I think they still have the free will. I just don't think that they choose to turn away now. They've seen what happens, right? And they see that once they make a choice like that, they can't worship him and be with him in that close relationship anymore. So they choose not to do that. That helps. All right. Anybody else? Thank you all. I will get this one. I recorded it, so I will get it out there if you want to